One day during the summer, when I was eating out for lunch, a thought popped into my mind. Then I started wondering more about it. You see, we all know that Firey's the one who ended up winning BFDI. But what if he hadn't? What if it was Leafy? From there, I came up with a few more alternate scenarios, which then evolved into this video. If you enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe with notifications on, as it would be much appreciated. Now, let's dive in. What if Leafy had won Dream Island? For argument's sake, we'll just pretend that the voting was switched and that Leafy got 406 votes, while Firey got 236. The initial ramifications would be that Leafy would almost certainly let everybody in, given that she didn't really have any enemies, at least from her point of view. And yes, that includes Firey, because despite her later actions, I don't see her holding the lava fall against him like he held disliking the Ferris wheel against her, as she wouldn't snap in this timeline. If everyone gets to come into Dream Island, that means nobody steals it. However, the announcer still sells it to someone off-screen, and most of the rest of the events transpire as usual, minus the ones that involve Leafy, since the other contestants know that she wouldn't try to steal the island that she owned. This does, however, mean that BFDIA still happens. The cast for Season 2 would mostly be the same. However, Leafy still being present means that Puffball wouldn't join the game, falling just one vote short of Yellowface. Put a pin in that because it'll be important later. Obviously, Leafy remains on Team No Name, and in BFDIA 2, she still takes some Yo-Yo Berries to become middle so she can actually touch Firey without burning up. No Evil Leafy encounter either, since they would likely be able to use Evil Leafy's map to get to Yo-Yo Land and back. Leafy would win the prize for BFDIA 3, I think, meaning that the host is now Leafy Speaker Box instead of Puffball Speaker Box. This specific bit also has repercussions outside of BFDI because of PSB's guest appearance in Inanimate Insanity 2's 4th episode. Now we move on to BFDIA 5. When you think about it, Leafy not being present may have caused a lot of the lengthiness of this episode. Without her, there may be no Leafy. In fact, BFDIA 5 may not have had multiple parts at all. Puffball being in the game certainly leads to 2/3 of the cast not dying, and then the remaining contestants not having to crank an HP RCC, both events that significantly slowed down all three teams. Obviously, Team No Name would use Leafy's map again to get most of the way there, then they can walk the remainder without much issue. However, Free Smart ends up taking second place because they still have the Super Van, so Wobunch will be put up for elimination instead. I predict that Coiny would win the prize, while Yellowface would be eliminated. He was bottom 3 the first time Team No Name lost. At this point, not much of note changes aside from the absence of a Firey-Leafy conflict, at least in the form we got it. I could see Blocky survive over Firey in BFB 24, but that's pretty much it. And before you ask, I don't think a bubble victory would change much, if anything. Maybe a Leafy bubble conflict in BFB similar to the canon Leafy Firey conflict, but I don't think BFDIA or IDFB would change at all. What if Eggy had been eliminated instead of Loser? Say Loser just gets bottom 2 instead of elimination. First, an arc would probably initiate about Loser being a liar, and having to rebuild trust with the other contestants. Since the losers don't lose again for the rest of pre-split, this doesn't really change anything important as far as eliminations go. It wouldn't be called the liar ball for the challenge either, since Eggy would be inside of it instead, and she didn't really lie at all. In BFB 8 and 9, they go the same way as they normally would, not because Loser isn't around, but because they're initially reluctant to have to do things for themselves, and they obviously don't want to trust Loser. For the rejoin, Leafy still joins the losers, but Eggy doesn't do nearly as well as Loser did in the vote, instead falling between 8-Ball and Stapy. Also, the thing with Clock not getting recovered would still happen, but differently. Loser would notice Clock was missing and try to point it out, but nobody else would listen except Leafy. She would definitely try to befriend Loser, as she was unaware of the liar situation since she was in the exit when it happened, and wouldn't have been told about it necessarily without him being eliminated. So more stuff would happen, but probably by the end of BFB 14, Loser has been redeemed in some way, so attention can be focused on Firey and Leafy in the following episode. Now we move on to the elephant in the room, the split. Obviously, Loser would still end up in post-split BFB, and he still gets eliminated in BFB 21 as he actually does. However, someone would still get to escape the exit, and I'm not referring to Spongy. Despite what countless elimination orders out there say, including some of mine, I doubt that Eggy would be the one to escape the exit. I think it would be Lie. My rationale? She was the one who wanted most to escape. Plus she was outright originally planned to do so along with Loser and Spongy, then join Teapot, which is what she would do in this alternate timeline. From there, it's pretty obvious she would join the strongest team on Earth. Death Pact again won't have her, I would imagine. Plus the strongest team would have an open spot as a result of Eggy not being there. As for eliminations, I think she would easily survive Teapot 2, and most likely Teapot 5 as well, with Basketball being eliminated. Moving further beyond that, I think she would get fairly far but not quite to the merge. She's liked for sure, but most of her appeal comes from the exit scenes. Vote to Save would definitely help more than hurt though, especially given the team I think she'd be on. What if Battle for BFB had a final 24 instead of 14? The alternate timeline has two possible paths, as there are two potential final 24s that there are. There's the one where the first 30 contestants switch to Teapot, and they're the only ones that switch at any point, and the ones where all the switches happen, except for the 10 that switch to Teapot as a result of the BFB's introduction. The first possibility is more interesting as it's more different than the final cast, so that'll be the one I focus on. Here, the contestants on the left side, plus Bottle who isn't shown, remain in BFB, and the contestants on the right go to Teapot. I'll start with BFB. Since 2 teams of 12 is very large and therefore unlikely, I think it would be 4 teams of 6, because it's a different amount than 8 per team like pre-split has, and also because it would remind 4 of themselves with their big ego. Each team would consist of about a third of the color wheel, with the grayscale contestants getting a team of their own. The 4-colored team would still be the have-cots, and the X-colored team the have-nots. However, there would also be primarily purple and pink team, who would later be dubbed the have-lots, as their tower in BFB 18's challenge would go untouched, and the last team would become the have-pots for no reason other than to keep up the rhyming scheme. Throughout post-split, which would be 10 episodes longer due to there being 10 more contestants, each team would lose exactly 3 times before the merge, which would occur when 12 contestants remain. These contestants from the have-lots, have-tots, have-pots, and have-nots would be the ones who fail to make the merge, with left to right being the order in which they would get out. As for who wins, honestly I couldn't see it being any of the mergers except Bommy, Nickel, Yellowface, Firey, or Puffball. Most likely I'd say are Leafy or Black Hole. In Teapot, winner still wins the debut, and since 31 is still prime and non-existy is non-existy, price tag still joins as well. I'm not going to try to speculate on names for the Teapot teams, which would be 4 with 8 members each, coincidentally both powers of 2. Team 1 would consist of Golf Ball, Tennis Ball, Basketball, TV, Robot Flower, Grassy, who would stay with Basketball, Remote because the rest of Death Pack stayed in BFB, and Pillow, who would follow Remote. Team 2 would have Blocky, Pen, Eraser, Snowball, Coiny, Pin, Needle, and Lightning, I guess? Team 3 would be Book, Teardrop, Taco, Barf Bag, Balloony, Woody, Winner, and Gatey. And Team 4 would be the Leftovers: Loser, Ice Cube, Price Tag, Bell, Foldy, Eggy, Rocky, and Spongy. That's gonna be it for this more experimental video of mine. If you think these scenarios would go differently, tell me how in the comments. Thank you all for watching,